I compete in bodybuilding competitions, but they're like I do bikini, which is the smallest amount of muscle, so as much as I would love to be really buff, I have to let everybody know it's a small muscle. So when I came home from a competition in September of 2021, and it was interesting to me because my husband always went with me to my competitions. And this particular one, he said, oh, you can just go on your own. We'll be fine. I'll stay with the kids. When I came home from that competition, he announced that was not happy and he was leaving. He picked a fight.
Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're talking about what does it mean when your husband rejects you sexually? My guest Erin's marriage was doing okay, so she was blindsided when her husband announced that he was moving out. Also, there was another woman. But in just a few months of using the 6 intimacy skills and the connection framework, there were miracles in her marriage. Wait till you hear what she did. I think you're going to want to do it too. But first, let's talk about what it means when your husband rejects you sexually. Because going from feeling so desired and sexy to getting rejected by your own husband is a terrible feeling. Is there something wrong with him? I mean, is there something wrong with you? Is it because you're not as attractive as you used to be? Either way, it's scary to think about a dreary future with no passion or very little passion. And you might wonder what you can even do about it if the problem is his lack of drive, especially if other people still notice you and appreciate you, which can feel like a tall glass of water in the desert when you're feeling insecure about not feeling desired. Are you going to be on a starvation schedule in the bedroom or even involuntarily celibate when you're still a sensuous being? That's a terrible life sentence to serve till death do us part, right? Feels heavy and sad. But fortunately, that doesn't have to be your story. There's plenty you can do to turn this ship around and skyrocket the passion in your marriage. That's right, skyrocket the passion. I've seen it too many times to doubt it. Here's what it means and what to do about it when your husband rejects you in the bedroom. Number 1, do a respect check. Here's what I've learned about nurturing physical intimacy in my marriage. Respect is the best aphrodisiac on the planet for men. When he looks into your eyes, if he sees reflected back to him that you see him as smart and capable, that is a huge turn on. However, if when he looks in your eyes, he sees your disappointment in him or your contempt for his ideas or your skepticism that he's capable, well, passion doesn't stand much of a chance. It took me a long time to figure out this association because I didn't realize I was being disrespectful. I was just trying to be efficient, get things done, save money. I thought I was helping him with my bountiful knowledge of just about everything. Because, I read articles. I've read a few articles, and that pretty much made me an expert. So I was pretty arrogant, but I didn't see it that way. I thought I was just really, really smart. Good thing, because he was just he didn't know how to do things the right way. So that was incredibly disrespectful and sad that I had amnesia about why I married him in the first place. It was because I thought he was so smart and handsome and funny. And also he plays the guitar and sings and he writes beautiful songs. But I forgot about all that when we were at a restaurant and he wanted to order a Coke and I told him not to because they're a ripoff at restaurants and we needed to save money. Yeah, I was charming like that. And that was hurting my sex life for sure. It wasn't until I learned to be respectful and how to be accountable when I wasn't so respectful that the physical intimacy came roaring back. But there was one more thing that was missing. This is number two. Try being more of a woman. There was an ad for perfume a long, long time ago that said, want him to be more of a man? Try being more of a woman. And I didn't really know what that meant exactly. But after the breakdown early on in my marriage, where I felt entirely rejected sexually and emotionally, I felt like I liked this reminder that my power is on my paper and that I'm a feminine being. That's how I was made. I have no real idea, no experience with what it's like to be a man, none. So being feminine comes with certain gifts and privileges. And I don't mean the negative connotations like playing hard to get or dumbing down or being manipulative or using crocodile tears. No, none of that. There's no need for that. Once I understood my true power as a woman, no need. So what I'm talking about is, well, today what I'm talking about is the feminine gift of receptivity. There's other feminine gifts as well, but this is something that I feel like, my mom and my grandma, they would have taught me had they known, or maybe it's just one of those mysteries in life that you have to uncover yourself. I don't know. But what I've come to believe is that receptivity comes along with being the sexier sex. We women have the tail feathers in our species, so we get pursued. We get to be desired, which feels amazing. I love that feeling. And more of that, please. But what if that goes missing? Well, maybe because I was just telling my husband how to drive, for example, right? Kind of disrespectful. And now I want to feel reassured that he still desires me. And here's what I used to do. And this is in the category of, if you can't be a good example, you'll just have to be a horrible warning. So I would go and stand with my hands on my hips and say, the average couple has sex 2.5 times per week, and we haven't done it for 2 weeks. So I think we should do it. Yeah, true story. Kind of embarrassing, pretty embarrassing. I thought he was going to jump off the couch, turn off the TV, and sweep me away into the bedroom for passionate physical intimacy. But as you already know, that never happened. Never happened. No. Instead, he continued to watch TV, and maybe he even turned the volume up a little bit to drown me out. So pretty embarrassing. And I certainly felt so rejected. If only I'd known about the feminine art of receiving, of being an irresistible magnet. I mean, since he wasn't pursuing me, there wasn't much to receive at first. But then as I cleaned up the disrespect and started making myself happy and maybe even expressing some gratitude, that changed. He came after me, and I realized it was much scarier to be pursued than it was to stand there with my hands on my hips and say, we should do it. And the timing sometimes felt so off. Like now, right now, you want to, whoa, okay. I felt more vulnerable, but also I felt desired. And the more receptive I am, the more I continue to feel desired. So if I could go back and talk to myself when I felt so rejected sexually, I would say, first of all, he's not the problem, but maybe look into cleaning up the disrespect. And then I would lean in and whisper in my own ear, receive, receive, receive. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest Erin's marriage was doing okay, so she was blindsided when her husband announced that he was moving out. Also, there was another woman. But in just a few months of using the 6 intimacy skills along with the connection framework, there were miracles in her marriage. Wait till you hear what she did. I think you're going to want to do it too. Erin, Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to hear your story today.
Thank you. I am really happy to be here. Thank you very much.
So let's go back to the bad old days. What was happening in your marriage?
So, in retrospect, there were some major life events that had been happening. Oh, probably about 6 months, 5 to 6 months prior to my husband leaving. The first one, I mean, we had all gone through COVID, and we have 4 kids. And so there had been a lot of changes with our kids. And my son in particular, it was really difficult because when schools closed, he was doing fantastic. He was riding his bike to school, getting to school early. He was in middle school on the soccer team, playing karate, or excuse me, doing karate, playing soccer. He also did karate. And switching to online school, it really impacted him. We have a history of a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics in our family. And so that's always been a touchy subject, to say the least. And we had discovered in the spring of 2021 that my son had been using drugs. And I thought that my husband handled it beautifully, but I think it was a huge stressor. My dad had also been diagnosed with a brain tumor, with a glioblastoma. And he had been alive about a year post-diagnosis at the time. And it was confusing because they had told us that most people who are diagnosed with glioblastomas live about 6 months. So it was really kind of this unknown. And in addition to that, my dad, who has truly always been my mentor, he really acted like a person that had dementia because of where the tumor was. So I didn't have that connection with him anymore. So there was a lot of grief going on. I compete in bodybuilding competitions, and I was in a competition season over the summer. And, competing is a very selfish sport. And I think given the stressors, I just put myself 100% into that competition mode. So I was working, I was competing. I remember feeling, though, like I was the perfect wife and mom and daughter because I literally would schedule time with everybody. And looking back, oh my goodness, this should have been a heads up. I remember my teenagers, my daughter saying, it's so weird, Mom, that you want us to put time on your calendar, to do things with us, that we have to schedule time. And oh my gosh, I was that person. I thought because I was doing all the things that I was a good person, I was a good wife. So for example, Saturday mornings,
just staying organized.
Oh
right?
my God. Right. Yeah. So I get up Saturday mornings really early so I could get all my weightlifting and cardiovascular exercise done. Then I would go to my mom's house and relieve her and take care of my dad. I'd bring my laundry with me to my dad's so I could get the laundry done while I was hanging out with him. And then I would get home and I would be so sad and grieving because, he was not himself. And then I would tell my husband, well, we could go out tonight. We have an hour or two, we could hang out. And why aren't you grateful for that? Can't you see? I'm making time for everybody. So, I fit the mold, but I never saw it. I thought I was a very perfect person. I said no to everything that wasn't on my schedule. If it wasn't there, it was a no. I mean, always. So I don't know
if
that
kind of spontaneity in your life at this time.
No spontaneity. And that's a huge part of my success and my story. Huge. I mean, I can't help but that's probably been the most life-changing thing in my relationship, just to kind of put that out there. But hopefully I'm painting the picture for kind of how my life was. I worked full-time, very fit, everything had a time and place, didn't have a lot of time for girlfriends, didn't have time really for anything outside of the to-dos. But I thought we were fine,
Now it sounds really exhausting to me too, though, like to just hear about your schedule. I'm tired just
Mhm.
hearing about it. So were you also pretty exhausted living that way or?
Looking back, I can tell you yes, but at the time, I I can't tell you that. I mean, I compared to what things I have done in my past, like when my kids were babies, and I'm one of those women, right? Like I went to school full time while I worked full time while I, and this is my second marriage. My first marriage, I was married to a man that had a pretty bad drug and alcohol problem. And so, out of necessity, I had to work so we could have our water on and all of that. And I don't want to
So
go too far down that, but go ahead.
you have a large capacity. You have a big capacity to do a lot of things. Not everybody does.
Yeah.
Right?
So I guess, so here's what I'll bring it back to. In my mind, I was so grateful because I was married to a man to which I only had to have one job. So I actually thought my life was very good, right? Because and I could always rely on him. I always know our bills will be paid, So I contribute and I love my job. But there was never that sense of urgency, like with my ex-husband, where, our water would be turned off if it was all on me. So, so that's why I think that when you ask me, were you exhausted? I look back at that time and I just think now, I was just empty. Like I thought I was so full, right? But it was like all these fillers. They weren't, it didn't, it wasn't satisfying. It wasn't joy. There was no joy. That's what I would say. The difference is, yeah. And that, um, so that's really how we were living. Um, and I had competed. It was my third competition of the season. I had competed in July. In August, I competed in Lake Tahoe. We took our whole family. We had a family vacation. So this last competition, I remember thinking like he had been like nice. Like he's like, oh yeah, go get your exercise done, or you can go do that competition on your own. So there was this part of me that was like, gosh, he's being so nice, right? And later that was something I had to let go of, like being afraid when he was nice. So,
Oh,
I came home from my last competition and it wasn't the greatest. I think I might have pushed that season a little too far. My trainer, though, he was great. He'd met me out there. Um, but I came back from that competition and my husband, he was acting odd. And looking back now, I know he completely picked a fight on purpose. And I fell right into the trap. And he was able to, at the end of that fight, be like, see, this is not going to work. I've been unhappy for a long time. And I'm leaving and I'm going to find a new place to live.
oh my
Um,
gosh. Out of
and
nowhere, as far as
out
you're
of
concerned.
nowhere. So I was furious. Like that was my first instinct.
Yeah.
Like, are you
Oh yeah.
kidding me? I can't believe you're leaving. And he moved so fast and he was so angry. Like that's the thing too. Like there was so much anger in him. So um I kept, I mean, it's kind of a whirlwind, but it was like at first I thought, okay, he's mad, he's going to come back. But when he came back, he was literally like clearing drawers, angry, clearing things out, looking for places. Um, and then he told the kids, and we have a blended family. He has two children, I have two children, and we've been married now for um, we've been together since 2012 and we'll be married 10 years 2024. So been to those little I've been with those kids for a long time, his kids and my kids.
Yeah. Yeah, those are
But
your kids.
they
Yeah.
are. But his two were very upset too, but my two had already gone through their dad walking out because of the drugs. And their dad is homeless. I mean, it really is they've had a rough run. So I'm here with the kids. The kids are devastated. but I chose to kind of focus on that part. Like I was so angry at him for hurting the kids. I couldn't understand. And he said, I just need a month. I just need a month on my own to like figure things out. And so that's what he told the kids. And that's what he told me. Um, and so we all kind of just anticipated that he would be back like in a month. He was still coming by, but it very quickly became very clear to me that there was something else going on. It was too much. So as luck would have it, I run. That's one of my like coping mechanisms, to go out and go run. And I was having kind of a hard time sleeping and eating. I was just not in a good place. And I was out running. The gym where I go is in the town next to us. And I got to the gym actually before it even opened in the morning because I was having such a hard time. And I usually exercise anyway really early. So I went out for like a loop in the dark, like with my, oh gosh, you can wear the little
hat, little
there you
miner's
go,
hat,
basically, that straps on.
miner lip.
And so I go running up this hill and there's this truck at a house. And so,
the total random chance thing that usually happens.
So I started thinking like, okay, well, this is not the house, like, because he had let us know the house that he was leasing, or like basically he was doing a month-to-month lease. This is not the house. And luckily, I had some good instincts at the time to kind of to not go to the house that he was leasing. Like I really was trying to respect, like he needed some time. So I hadn't really even gone over there like to check on him. I really was not checking on him. This was a true accident. And he had this really unique truck at the time. And I thought, all right, well, he's not staying at the house that he said he was staying at. And so I kind of started asking. Then I kind of started digging a little bit. Like I started looking on Instagram, like people that he was friends with. And I noticed that one of the new ones was a woman that taught a spin class at our gym. And I just had a suspicion. And sure enough, that's who he had left me for, was for her. So, yep. So I went into total, well, I think there's something that's really good about me that's helped me really survive. When I kind of, I call it like, I become like kind of a nerd when and I start trying to learn to figure out a situation. So I think I did start to Google, like, your husband leaving you for another woman, like making it work if your husband leaves you for another woman, and your podcast came up. And as luck would have it, the very first podcast that I listened to, and I tried to kind of quickly go back through and find it so I could reference it, but I wasn't able to. She did have an accent, maybe Australian accent, but she was talking about her marriage and that she believed she knew the right way to parent, and that she was constantly making suggestions for her husband to read like parenting advice. And that was me. I am the world's teacher. And so even though her situation at the time like was really nothing like my acute situation, she was describing me as a wife. And so it really got me to hook in, and I really started to listen. So from that episode, I started listening to all of the podcasts, but I also immediately downloaded your book, and I started listening to that. And I was really lucky because my husband is a really good dad, and he's just even in leaving, he has had the obligation, like he needed to take care of us, right? And so he was really good about coming back every single night to see the kids. And he was really good about being there on the weekday mornings, when they got up. So I had access to him, which a lot of women
Not
don't.
everybody
I was
does.
able,
Not everybody
yeah.
does. Yeah, that's right.
And the other thing, thank God, I'm so grateful that I didn't choose to confront him about the other woman before I heard everything. Because I think what another piece that was really critical in my situation is that I really took this stance of um, one, I really did, that podcast really did make me start to look at the things that I had done to contribute to our breakdown.
So prior to
Um,
that, though, prior to looking at how you contributed, I mean, at least from the way I'm hearing the story, I mean, it's all him. You are perfect, really, at this point. He
I was perfect.
not only decides to leave, you find out there's the spin teacher. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is devastating, right? This is
Devastating. And
he's bad.
she knew we were married. That was another.
Ah,
So I'm telling you, like I'm speaking very simple, but as you're summarizing this, please understand, oh my God, the pain.
yes, the pain. Because
I
this
just
is
want, I was in so much pain.
so much pain. I mean, you can
Mm-hmm.
it's not very relatable at all that you got to the gym early and had to go for a run in the dark with your miner's lamp on, because I don't know too many people that do that, but in a way I think it does speak to like you were going a little crazy, not crazy, but like
But I couldn't sleep.
you couldn't
That
sleep.
was, I
Yeah,
couldn't
because
sleep. So I was laying in bed in physical, the kind of pain that it's that emotional pain. And again, it was this combination of my son. Oh, it was like every man in my life, right? From my little boy to my dad to my husband, every one of them. Um,
oh,
and the pain was like having the flu all the time. And every minute, I just remember at that time, like, I was at work and trying to focus, and I was like, I cannot believe that only 10 minutes has gone by. Like
oh,
every minute of life was that trickle kind of feeling.
excruciation. Yeah,
So
excruciation. That's my new
yeah,
word
so
I made up. But yeah, that's how you
I
were
want
feeling.
to, yes. So I think that's a really important part of my story too. Um, because this, I think that a lot of the inaction that I was taking, which was so unique to me, because I'm always about action and I'm going to make you do this because then we can fix this, right? The devastation actually put me in a place where it was easier to not do than to do.
Mm, mm.
And
And that
there
kind of
was
sounds like that was a gift.
that was a huge gift because I've always been like, let me fix it. I'll fix this. I'll make you better. Read this and we can get back together. The fact that everything that you were saying was only about what I could work on, that's what was so magical. It was the first time ever that I read something and didn't immediately turn to him and say, like, look at all the stuff you should be doing. you know, that's the
Yeah.
magic. That's the magic of the skills. And Laura, this is so funny, but I even started like, I remember being out running and there was a sign like slow down or drive slow, and like my mind started changing so much. I was like, I think I would now say like, I love slow driving. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how we're always like, people will wear shirts that say be kind to others, and my mind now thinks like, oh well, I am kind. Like it focused every action back to me. Those were the major um mindset shifts that were taking place. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. In fact, I love this. It's kind of a metaphor. Like you see a sign that says slow and you really
Mm-hmm.
applied it to yourself. You're like, let's put that on Aaron's paper. Like, how can I
Mm-hmm.
go slow?
Yes.
How does that serve me today? Yeah.
And just in our society, how much we're not on our paper.
Right. It's easy to get off.
That's what I think I was just looking at. So, so he was falling deeper and deeper in love with this person. He did
Ugh.
actually come to me and like admit it. He admitted that he was with somebody else. And I did, because I already knew who it was, I did dig a little bit at that time and ask him, and he did admit who it was. And I look back to like how strong I was. This is the piece I was so strong on. He was talking about her. She's amazing. She's this, she's that, she's wonderful. And I just listened, you know?
Whoa.
And there, I mean, as
Wait. I mean, didn't you hate her right then? I mean,
oh, there, trust me, there's, but I, again, the devastation was a protector because I was so sad that it was, you know, it was like putting water on fire. You know, there wasn't a lot of room for anger because there was so much sadness and there was so much, oh, there was so much pain. So let me take one more little two. I think there were like two big pivotal moments. Mid October, so he'd left towards the end of September. Mid October, I'm like 2 weeks into this, definitely about 2 weeks into the a week into the skills. I feel like probably around this time, we're like at the beginning of October right now. I had found this somewhere in that first week of October. I found that podcast and I just dove in, right? I became like immersed in the skills. And I was out hiking. Boy, being outside became my like comfort. And I listened to another podcast, this time with a woman whose husband had left her. And they were back together. And she wrote him an apology. And I was so inspired by that apology. And I think at some point in it, and she said that she was so ready to let her husband lead, their family. So I was so inspired in that moment that I sent my husband a text, thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you've ever done for us. So I'm giving all this gratitude and I'm really ready for you to lead us. And he responded with, I'm so angry at you that you're doing this now. Like, I am so happy now. And now you are finally doing this. But I actually got a little hope in that.
yes. Yes. Incredible. I mean, and it was heartfelt. You weren't just like, okay, Laura says to send some gratitude over, so I'm going to do it. You were actually feeling it. You went there in your heart.
Mhm.
Which is
And I believe that there was apology in there too. I'm sorry for these things I've done. So grateful for all of these things. And I'm ready for you, really to follow your lead on things. So I do feel like there were a lot of those components in there.
it's so moving. I mean, brings tears to my eyes to hear that you would text that and then to have him respond with anger. I mean, yeah, I could see why you got kind of excited in a way, because that's I think the opposite of um hate is really is nothingness, right? Being
Nothing.
passive.
It is.
And he actually felt he was angry and he was letting you know, which is yeah, yeah, I get it. I see why you're excited about that. It was really a sign that he still
I
cared
did.
about you.
I interpreted it as that. And so I held on to that. And then the second thing that I did that I think was, I feel like that was a really big moment. He had always wanted to get his pilot's certificate to be a private pilot. And I'm going to tell you that's another big part of my story, because in the skills, we talk so much about faith over fear. And I wouldn't do it. He wants to fly. I wouldn't even fly. I wouldn't. It was very difficult for me. We had traveled to Mexico once, but I mean, I was so afraid of everything. I was afraid of elevators. I was afraid of heights. I wouldn't go on roller coasters. I said no to many family things because I was too afraid to ski, to go in ski lifts, to go on water slides. I was afraid of everything. And he was over one of the nights. And this is, I started getting quiet when he would come over. And he was watching something on Instagram or TikTok about, pilots. And I said, you really should go for that. Um, and he goes, huh. And, he was in an interesting place himself at that time, leaving. And he does move quickly. I mean, really, the affair was a quick thing. He met her, was out within like a month of meeting her. I talked to him about that sometime around mid-October. By October 29th, he was doing his discovery flight to get his pilot certificate. So during this time, he started to pursue that dream. And I thought, okay, this is great, because if he, maybe this is what's been missing, maybe he needs something else that he needs to focus on. And so I chose to support that with all my heart. I mean, I was 100% in.
And
No.
prior to that,
Uh-huh.
he'd brought up wanting to do this flight training. And how
Uh-huh.
did you react in the past?
Like just totally blew it off.
Okay,
Like it
like
was like fake and silly. Like, oh, sure, you want to be
fake
a
and
pilot.
silly.
Hmm.
Okay, you were dismissive of his
Very
dream.
dismissive. Hmm.
Yeah.
And why can't he be a pilot? Like, why not?
Why not? Oh my gosh, why not? Because it's crazy and it's dangerous and you didn't want him to, right? Was the
It's
old
so silly.
thinking,
Like,
but
why would you need to fly? Like, why?
yeah, why do you need to do that? And why can't someone else
Yeah,
fly the plane?
no,
That's yeah, that's more qualified than
amazing.
you.
So
Wow. So okay, so did his head explode though when you said, I mean, how did
I
he
think he was,
respond?
I think he was so confused by me. He
I
didn't know
bet.
what was up. And that's the other thing that happened. We had this family trip planned at the end of October. He races mountain bikes. And because the kids were going, I got to go. And um, I kept being in this. I also, I mean, I guess it's like in the skills, like this should be assumed, but I had deeply started pursuing things that made me happy. So I do want to throw that in there, because I think it's really important to understand that as all this is going on, I'm not faking it. I'm also starting to like learn about myself, and it's a miracle. Um, but you can, in the deepest depths of grief, you can find something that can make you really happy, and you can experience pure joy. Even if it's for 30 minutes, like you can have that. It became, I just am so grateful that was the first skill. And I was so surprised. I mean, I've always exercised, I've thought like I have a very full life, but I had like five things on my list. And I think about it, like even with my exercise, I like exercising, like, I really like weightlifting a lot, but I love walking. I love walking at sunset. I love hiking and looking out like those. So I started to like you
Hmm.
say, like really just throughout the day, really pay attention to things that like I like that. I love watching Chihuahua videos on Instagram reels. But I had to like get present enough to understand like that's something that is bringing me a joyful feeling. So when I got invited to go on this, it was a camping. We all stayed in our the camper together. Um, I it was still even on that trip intentionally doing things that made me really happy. So there was a lot of anxiety going on inside of me. Like my base level at that time was a lot of grief, anxiety. There was hope, but I was in that place of like feeling like I didn't want to blow it. I don't want to, but I think that I was getting those little breaks. So we had an amazing trip, and he came home and told me he wanted to file for divorce. And
Oh no. No. Wait.
and that, yes.
This
So
is
that's
getting
the trip.
worse.
Oh my gosh. So I flipped out
Yeah.
because I had posted pictures of our trip, and she saw them. And so,
She was bringing some heat
yeah,
to him.
yeah. And so she came after him. And And I think this is really fair to say. Here's where I think I think I was using the skills entirely, but I also on the side learned about the concept of limerence, which is when you fall crazy, madly in love with somebody very quickly. And it's a true chemical
Yeah.
intense
Yeah.
reaction. So I personally chose to believe that my husband, and maybe this is because I had been married to an addict before, that this was my husband's addiction. And he was in it 100%, and that it wasn't real love, and that time would tell, time. And that for me personally, that was a belief that it was very helpful for me to learn about the concept of limerence while I was working on the skills. But I never told him, you're just a limerence. So I just
Yeah,
want to make that.
I didn't dismiss it. Yeah. Like you're not in
Yeah.
love. You don't even
Yeah.
know. Yeah. But it gave you strength to think about how fleeting that those feelings might
I was
be.
hopeful. Like once so that that was like the final. That was horrible, and I remember
Horrible.
sobbing, and I remember calling my mom and my best friend and texting his brother and just asking, and his brother was like, whatever, let him do it, you know um but in
And
truth,
which,
really.
yeah, were other people saying? They're probably saying like, "Oh, he doesn't deserve you," and
Yeah,
yeah,
that's why you find out. I had to get really strong in my belief that I really wanted to stay married. And
yeah.
luckily for me, the people that were supportive, my friends that were supportive, are actually very healthy people. They're really good friends. And it's interesting because some of the people that I knew that were not as supportive, I wouldn't necessarily be on their path anyway. But here's what I want to say. I had, it almost is, I think in our society, it feels shameful to be cheated on and
Yeah.
to stay. And the
You're
first,
a
yeah,
fool. Makes you a fool, right?
I'm
If you
like,
do
yeah.
that.
And also, I think what women will hear commonly is you're better than that.
Yeah.
And my response was, well, of course I am. And of course I don't deserve it. But luckily for me, I see that there were many things in our relationship that I was doing that contributed to our breakdown. And now I'm working on those things. And I would just kind of
Whoa.
leave it at that. But there's a lot of, I really want that to be in my interviews, just like there's so much pressure, I think,
To
on
leave.
women to leave.
To leave. So much pressure. I appreciate hearing that, right? Because this means you're having to swim upstream just to even kind of hold the vision that your family could be whole again.
Yes.
And 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 this part, you say it so you're so accountable. You say it so naturally, but there were a lot of things I did to contribute. But let's review. He
Mm-hmm.
cheated on you. He moved out,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, you are the victim in this situation, at least.
I'm the obvious victim, right? Because nobody knows, and that's what I think you have to get. Okay, now here's the other thing, though. I'll say, Laura, I'm not up for this again. Like we've had a long run, and I'm not, and now I've cleaned up my side of the street, for the most part. I mean, I lapse.
Of
So
course, of course.
yeah, but yeah, so I do want to put that out there. It's not like like you say, everybody knows their own relationship best. What I knew was I felt like there was enough that I had contributed to that I would like to be given an opportunity to do it right and to do it again. And I felt like I could forgive him because of the way that I contributed to the problems in the relationship.
Wow. So you're saying looking at your side of the street actually gave you what you needed to get out of any resentment that you felt. Is that
Yes,
right?
especially at that time when I was so focused on me.
Yeah.
I was in so much, and in some ways, that was a time I look at that like I was so It was so easy to be vulnerable because I was so raw, right? Um, and so, so I just moving on from that, I really feel like that was like the worst. I mean, there are things happen, but like that was, it was like after that point of he wanted to get divorced for whatever reason. um, he didn't come home. He didn't talk about reuniting, but he stopped talking about divorce. And that was the end of October. Um, in November, they had like their first big fight. And so I saw the cracks. I know.
Sorry.
Right. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So again, and this is the other thing I want to put out there, that this didn't get fixed overnight, and he didn't come back overnight. You start to see the cracks. And he took and during this he's still working on his pilot's license, and I'm totally in favor of that. He took myself and the youngest daughter to Disneyland in around November. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
and I went on roller coasters for the first time. I didn't complain about his driving all the way down there. Um, and they were off and on. I was super disappointed when he ended up going back over there on Thanksgiving. I mean, that was devastating. They were still together. But it was really like this, at that point, it started to become this like roller coaster.
You were on a real
Um,
roller coaster besides the one at Disneyland. Yeah.
and he also started making, he was never staying at our house before November. And in November, he started staying the night. Like on some of the nights, he would stay home with us. I know now, he was telling her he was staying with in one of the girls' rooms, in daughter's room, but he was staying with me. And so, and I started really, there were some nights like he said he would come home and he wouldn't be home. And I remember one in particular, I just sent a text message, I'm going to bed. I love you. And um, I know that you're going to come home tonight because you said you were, so I'll see you when you get here, whatever. So I really just started using that like confidence. So then
Kind of a
like trying to move
self-fulfilling
it forward.
prophecy. Yeah.
Yeah. So a ton of that. And every time I felt anxiety, Laura, I would write as if things were already, and I believe in God. And so I think people could do it in any positive way they wanted, but I would say, thank you, God, for having my husband move back home with us. Thank you, God. The relationship was really rocky with my son. Thank you, God, for a loving relationship between my husband and son. I also started praying for the other woman, positive. Thank you for allowing, I'd say her name, for her to release my husband. I was it wasn't like, please make this happen. It was like you were saying, it was really like as if. So I got very strong in that. And then I had a huge victory because I'm going through the holidays and he's still with her and seeing her and everything. But
That
he
is a
got
painful holidays to have. Like you are married and your husband's with someone else on
so much
Thanksgiving.
pain. So much pain.
So much pain.
But on Christmas Eve, he got to take a person with him for the first time in the plane, flying, and it was me.
Oh,
And so, right. And so, though, again, I kept focusing on those victories, and she, luckily, he he had made. I'm so sorry. This might sound so immature, but I was allowed. Like he blocked her from like my all of my social media is public. That's a choice of mine, but he had blocked her from my social media, which I let him do. I didn't battle that. And I posted like that he took me in the plane. I posted that we went to Disneyland, and somebody was a leak. Somebody was sharing it with her. And
oh,
so,
oh,
yeah.
well,
So he would
so
get
she
upset.
found out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So here's the best. So here's the best one. So I'm going.
That is very satisfying. I mean, I'm thinking about that thing we always say, a wife with the intimacy skills, trumps the other woman every day of the week and twice on Sundays. And this is like you're feeling this, you're experiencing this as you're getting the special spot in his life.
And so she's starting to kind of beat on him about that, right? Like she was starting to like nag him. nag him for doing that and making him feel guilty. And, the whole reason that she was so fun. And think about this, their relationship was primarily based, he would be over here at night. She also had a daughter. He would wait till her daughter was asleep and go over there. So their relationship was like a permanent sleepover. It was like only the fun, right? It was all the fun stuff. So I really thought about that too. Like, can you imagine, like, you just go see this person that's just so happy to see you, and there's no distractions, and you just get to focus on them, and they're telling you that you're the most amazing man in the whole world. Like it. So I took that as a lesson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, one, when it gets real, I don't think that it's going to, I mean, we had such a great friendship, we have a great friendship. We had that base. They have no base. They just have this magical fantasy type of relationship, but it was, he was hooked into it. So, so now time is going on. We've gotten through Christmas. I had not had COVID. I was being very careful about getting COVID because of my dad and everything. And sure enough, she gives him COVID. But because of that, they had to actually like stay together like 24/7 for
I was mad at her before this, but no.
But that pretty much that helped him come home.
It did? Mm-hmm. Oh, because they were together 24/7 and she didn't have skills.
And she was sick. And you know what? Just a little bug. Because any of us when our husbands are sick, like that's not a great time. So he's sick, right? And I mean, I think for most of us, our husbands are not great at being sick. So so I don't think he was on his best behavior either. So he I don't even know if he really told her, but he got rid of that lease and he came home. However, they kind of kept their relationship. Now it gets even, oh my gosh, this is where, Laura, I'm like, stop me at any time, because this is where it really like, so he's home. So I'm so grateful that he's home. He had planned a trip with me at the end of January to go to Las Vegas. We loved going to Las Vegas together. And basically knew she would find out. I think that was his way of kind of like ending it with her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sure enough, she found out and she cut him off when we were in Las Vegas. But then he was so depressed. Oh. So there's the reality. So he wanted to be with me. He wanted to come home. But the reality is there was a relationship with this other person, and it was a fun relationship. And she's beautiful and she's young and there's going to be grief in that. So that was really hard. I think those were some of the hardest months. And I'm going to tell you, this is where I didn't follow you. And I think it got really twisted and I learned a very, very important lesson. So after they broke it off and he was home, I hadn't contacted her at all. I actually contacted her because in February, so he'd been gone. Am I making sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So basically the end of January, they were done. She was like, had it with him. I'm not seeing you anymore. So I thought she fully cut him off because he went with me to Vegas, that she was done with him. But one night he went to get gas and he didn't come home. And I freaked out.
Oh, yeah.
I freaked out. And he would answer the phone. I didn't know where he was. And so I had her number and I got in contact with her. And I asked if he was there and she said yes. And he was furious with me. And he later said, I just needed to talk to her. And she supposedly cut him off after that. And we were talking. And I got her basically to start talking with me in February. This is really bizarre. The day that he was testing for his pilot certificate, so now we jump forward to March. Okay. We actually had a phone call together, and she admitted to me that she did know we were married, that she was very sorry, that he had told her, we were having problems. Like the whole story like came out. There had been little bits back and forth on text, but the whole story came out in March. I felt like at that point I had an ally. And I decided to, I told her, I forgive you. I was friendly to her after that at the gym. I believed her that she would have nothing else to do with him again. My friends at the gym were like, oh my gosh, so I can't believe that you can smile and be friendly at
I
her. I
mean,
mean,
that's something. That's unusual. You're an outlier.
and just to add a piece to that, because I wanted to just add this, something else that I did while he was gone was I rebuilt, my kids are older now, I rebuilt friendships with women. I started realizing one of my happiest things is having dinner dates with my girlfriends. So I had this nice, I have this great group of girlfriends I work out with now at the gym, which totally changed working out. Now it's like fun time, right? um, so they were like, I can't believe it. But I really, looking back now, I was controlling. I thought, right? I thought if I had this ally with this woman and I forgive her, and I did, I have to tell you, at the time, I deeply felt a sense of forgiveness. Like, but he was still being weird. And he was really like in that, he just, I could tell, just grieving, But we were doing good. And then we were really doing good by his birthday in May. Like and he kept saying how glad he was that he was home. And throughout this, he had thrown out like little apologies and things like that. He really had expressed remorse. The end of May, beginning of June, it felt funky again.
Oh,
So
no.
I started reaching out to her more. Um, and I'm going to tell you something. This woman is amazing. She's so amazing at telling stories and making you feel. She made me feel like I was the most special person in the world. She's magical at that. And so I kind of like had this like feeling, but I don't know, I didn't dig any deeper than I don't know. But at any rate, at one point I got like around June, I was like, I'm so okay, if she's my ally, then why is she still texting him? Because I would still see that she was texting him. So see, I was still like really not on my paper all the way. And I told her to stop texting him. And I think that was me poking the bear or whatever. Because they did end up reconnecting. Now
Oh,
I'm going to tell you though, this is like something I'm going to tell you. We had another trip planned in June of that year, and this is really kind of like this is like the grand finale on this. And he went up ahead of me to where we went camping, and I was on that same run that I do. That was, of course, by her house, and it's just my loop. I wasn't trying to stalk her or anything. And I noticed like there's another truck at the house. I'm like, oh, I guess she has somebody else now. I didn't think anything of it, right? Ran. And when I was up there in the mountains, somehow it got mentioned. I'm sure I was kind of like, I'm telling you at that time, looking back, like I was not on my paper. Like I really think about the skills and I really think about like I thought I had control over this. And I mentioned there was a truck and he turned totally white. Um, and it turned out that he had been seeing her again, but I guess she was seeing other people too. And he didn't know that. And so that I'm going to tell you also was um, that was such a hard thing because
you're seeing the level of attachment, right? You're seeing how much
his pain.
investment he had in her when wanting her to be
Mm-hmm.
faithful to him, even though,
He's
again,
with me. Yeah, which was her. So that I guess I want to point that out because you could say like If I wouldn't have connected with her, perhaps they never would have gotten back together. Perhaps they would have. But I think what I learned was when I'm involved, when I'm talking about it, even if you think you're controlling something, like I thought she was my buddy, there is no control.
Was it?
And she was so good, Laura. Like there, so the one thing was this really, he fell apart. He was so sad. That was really devastating. But then he was furious with her and he was done. But so then I was able to kind of he started to share information. Like he started like sharing it. I mean, there were times I asked if he was over there, and instead of just saying no, she would give me like an elaborate story, like he's not over here, and let me know if you think he's coming my way because my nephew's over here making cookies with us. Which he would show me she would then text him, "Can you come over? Like, can you please come over?" So I just want to put out there, like what I learned from that, I can't control anybody,
No.
and if I believe that he's going to be faithful to me, I need to choose to believe that 100%.
I mean, I love this. I love hearing these details because it's such a great example of what I hear you saying is that she was your ally, but it was out of fear in a way. You thought it could
Yeah.
help keep you safe. If you were connecting with her directly, then you could call her to be a good human being and not prey on your husband. And that
So I was
didn't.
doing it like in a backdoor way. And I can tell you truthfully, I had forgiven her, like, and I could truthfully say hello in a friendly way. But when I dig deep, I wanted to know what was going on. I was afraid. So I could contact her and she could lie to me, right? Um, and it was like going through it all over again, you know. Um,
Awful.
but
Yeah,
I did take
terrible.
that lesson, and now here's the neat thing that was also happening at about the same time. So he had his pilot's license. Now remember, I was afraid, or his pilot certificate. I was afraid to fly,
Yeah, you don't like flying. Yeah.
and I do think in the beginning it was easy to not be afraid because there was so much pain from the sadness. And so, like going on the roller coasters and going on the water slides, we went zip lining. I mean, I really did all the things. So, in the beginning, it was so easy not to be afraid. It was like, I don't know how else to explain that. The pain was so intense, it dulled the fear.
Yeah.
So,
Is it almost like a kind of a like, oh, who cares if I die on this roller coaster anyway?
yeah,
Because I hurt so much right now. It wouldn't
you
be all
know,
bad.
to be honest, I never considered myself suicidal. I will say that with all my heart. But I can see where there's this whole like, whatever if we crash because I'm in pain. Like the pain could numb out your fear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I do.
So as I got well, that the temptation, I mean, I'm 46 years old. I spent my whole life being afraid. So this is a long pattern. So now it's a decision. Now it's a decision not to be afraid. Now it's a decision like, and what I say to myself, like, even with the zip lining was later in that year, I got that little feeling before I went off the ledge. This is a girl that couldn't stand on a ladder, and I just say I don't do that anymore because life is so much more fun like this, you know. So
I don't do that anymore. Like that's not who I am. That's not what I do. This is like a personality transplant you gave yourself.
and I'm going to keep it. So no matter, so that's the thing. Like even if I lose, I get to keep that. Um, and so he started saying like, we're going to go here, we're going to do this. And okay. We planned a trip to go to Arizona last summer after this last thing happened with the other woman. And we had planned to go like the next day. And he said, he contacted me and he said, I really want to leave tonight. And the old Aaron would have said, oh, I can't. I can't go today. We have to. And I said, all right, I just need to make sure that I need help making sure that somebody can take care of the dogs tonight. And then that'd be great. And so sure enough, he took care of that. And I went with him and we had it was the most beautiful sunset flight into Laughlin over the Colorado River. It was it was surreal. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, if the old you would have, stepped in, we can't do that. Totally, and he would have listened. He would have been irritated, but he would have listened to me. I would have missed all that. Um, and as the year continued, I just started saying things like, I would love to go to Mexico. And what do you know? A trip to Cancun gets planned.
What
Um,
do you know?
yeah, it was amazing. I would love, now that the kids are older, I would love to have a car, a smaller car. I pretty much got my little cute dream car in September. So a year after he had left. So I've been to Cancun and Costa Rica. I have the car. Um, and then finally, I think I started feeling I do love competing in bodybuilding. And I didn't really think much about it. I kept lifting weights and I kept exercising, but I really just was around and available to my family, outside of that. And did a lot of fun things and a lot of spontaneous things. And the plane, I mean, talk about it just being so fun for those spontaneous type of little trips. But I decided I would try to compete again. And I was really scared to do that because it does take another level of focus.
Yes.
So I was really afraid that if I start focusing so much on that and I'm not available to him, so fear, then
Mm.
our relationship is going to fall apart again. And I had been joining the groups, the coaching groups, and I think in one of your talks that your monthly talks that you do, I heard you tell somebody like that you believe, really, I'm going to paraphrase completely. These were not your exact words, but really, like, it's not that you have to give up this thing that you really want to do, you should be able to do both. Like, it's really like your behavior that you had while you were intensely pursuing that thing that was the turnoff to your husband. And yes, that's true because you can be nasty and uptight and like just kind of blow them off and this is the most important thing, or it can be this thing that you do and you still are using the skills with your husband, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It can probably make you even shinier, I bet, because it lights you up, right? You're passionate about competitive
It did, but it also
bodybuilding.
tested me because what I really found out about myself, and this is the part of your skills that I love, is like your emotions really they become like the alarm for what you need to do, right? So what I now know about myself is if I get tired and overwhelmed and have a lot going on, I get controlling. So
Hey.
so if I am starting to hear myself telling people what to do and where to put their shoes and how to clean up and turn that down, and I go, uh-oh, that's hard. But so I think I did have a slow start. I think there was a little bit of self-sabotage on my part in the beginning. And then I would say things like, I knew I just couldn't do this again. I knew this was too much, and I had gotten his full permission to compete again. So I really had to take a step back and go back to the skills. Really, is it because you're spending more time competing or because you're coming home and you're telling him what to do? Like,
Mm.
what's the real, um,
Yeah, let's find out, right? Yeah. That's
mhm. um, and I can hear it in myself now. Ugh. It's almost like terrible, like once your eyes have been open, like I can't stop the behavior always, but I can see the behavior.
The mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimensions. So you can't just hear that and not feel kind of yicky about it, sounds like.
That's perfect. It almost feels, I can tell when I've gone back into my old behavior because I feel like I need to like get clean.
Take a
Like,
shower. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Get clean.
it
Yeah,
feels,
get clean. It
yeah,
feels
it
hairy and
feels,
dirty to be
yes.
controlling now. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, so it was, so I, I do, I mean, again, lots of ups and downs and so many little details along the way, but I will say that the neatest thing was I did get to do the same competition that he had left me after in September of this year. He flew me to the competition. Um, we, I did really well. I got first in that competition. We went to dinner after. I visualized it forever. Yeah. And I visualized that dinner because I had gone with my trainer the year before without my husband. And I kept seeing like myself like being successful and also that dinner. And it was so fun because my trainer was there and my husband had some friends that came. So I was sitting at the head of that table with my husband, friend, and his friends. And it was just I just couldn't, the gratitude, I mean, that I had in that moment was just amazing for that. And even though there will be times that, I'm human and I have those feelings of resentment, I get
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, the gratitude always wins. It always feels like, oh, I'm just so grateful. I mean, I'm so grateful for you for putting it into like this comprehensive package that I can follow.
I'm glad we found each other. Congratulations on your incredible success. What a difference a year makes.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so now actually two. So this was
2 years. Oh,
2 years.
years.
And
2 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
not year,
Yeah.
but yeah, two years. So a year after was like when the car and all the trips and all that stuff started happening. And then two years was when I competed again. Yeah.
So it's fun to
So
think about, like, if you could go back and tell yourself what you know now, right? Like it's a beautiful, and they lived happily ever after moment. You at dinner after
mhm,
winning the competition with your husband and his friends and feeling so grateful and
mhm.
victorious on so many levels. So if you could go back and tell yourself what you know now, what would you say?
I think my biggest, just the biggest gift that I've gotten out of this, and the thing that I wish I would have gotten, like when I was in my early 20s, was just that faith is so much more important than fear. Faith is more important than fear. I mean, I can't. I do. There's so many pieces like I want to tell myself, but I think that like just don't be afraid, just do it. And realizing also because it's been so helpful for me, I used to not think that anxiety was that bad of a thing, like anxiety and fear. As soon as it was put into the framework of actually that I was just a big old control freak, it took on a completely different flavor. And so that I think that I would, I used to think like, oh, it's fine, I'm just scared. But now I'm like, you're not scared.
You're not scared.
You want to control the outcome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, which is a pretty good sign that you are scared. Yeah. You're trying to
Mhm.
control the outcome. And so it sounds like now you can catch yourself when you feel the temptation to control. Is that true or is it?
On good days. And I think that's why I really I've wanted to reach out to you for a long time. I realized that I at least perfection is not going to happen ever.
Not for
And
me.
I
Yeah.
never. I definitely do better when I'm in group coaching. And so and we'll figure out a way to get back into that again. That was like my daily dose. And hearing women share their wins, that actually was one of my happy things, walking while listening to women sharing their wins, and those wins would help me just apply that to my life. So I believe that I'm still, hopefully I'm not going off the question, but
Yeah,
am I?
I'm loving
I'm
it.
okay, good. Because I blow it. That's what you asked. I do blow it a lot, but I am quicker at getting back on track, and I'm getting good at apologizing and then shutting my mouth. I don't do the buts now. I apologize for being disrespectful and then I actually many times leave the area because I still have a mouth. My
It
job
might go
is,
off. Yeah.
yes, and my profession is solving problems all day long. That's my job. So it's
You have some
so
training in that area, it sounds like. Yeah.
so I try to, although I'm also using the skills. I mean, it's not always appropriate, but it's I sure don't have to tell people what to do as much as I thought I did. People are pretty I was really, that's the piece, Laura. Like, I really thought the world needed me to solve their problems. I've really started trusting people, that people are walking their own paths, and that they can take care of themselves. And being a witness to that, it, the relationship with my 19-year-old daughter has just become magical. I mean, that's also been a gift. And I've done Laura Doyle apologies to her. And it's funny because she's still in the habit of like, well, what should I do? And I go, oh, I think, whatever you think, you know what's best for, I know. And it's magical. She talks to me all the time now. And we had times where she would see me and go the other direction, like the sound of my voice was probably, so, and it's working. My 16-year-old son, he's still kind of in it, but, telling him, I trust that you're going to get to school on time. I trust that you're going to have good grades. Catching him with those good grades and really telling him I'm so grateful that he's taking care of it. And, it really, it's a great, and even, also, I guess to close the story up, my dad, he passed away last Monday. And I will say, even in that, giving my mom the grace to care for him in the way that she knew was best, and honoring I mean, what a gift to me to see her love my dad to his last, to the moment he died on this earth. And I didn't interfere with that, even if at times I would have done things differently. And so I think that it's just, it's giving me the gift of like bearing witness to how others would like to enjoy and live their life. I think that that's been a huge thing. But I also, just like folks in AA, well, I believe that I will always need to refresh practice and and do that. Yeah.
We're recovering control freaks together is what we are, and for sure. Yeah.
Amen.
But what a beautiful story. I love hearing about you. Really just respecting your mom's, bearing witness to your mom's way of loving her husband until the day he died, the moment he died.
The moment. Yeah.
Even
It
though
was
you
so
had some other
beautiful.
ideas, but it sounds like, for how she should love him at that point, right? Yeah. Yeah. You could have solved her problems, maybe.
The whole way. Let me tell you something. That was hard, but it
Right.
was. But
So many ideas, right? Yeah.
but it is, and and that's the thing. When people tell you that you should just leave, when you see that moment, when you get to see the person that stood by your side, who was there for all the ugly and all the good, and they're holding you when you leave the earth, that's love. Like, that's why you don't just leave because there was a blip in your lifespan together, if you can help that. um and to add on to that, my husband was incredible. He's been incredible, and that was the other piece. I had some fears with, because I thought like giving my dad all that attention and all that grief that was also happening when my husband first left. I thought if I really was grieving and really lost in that, that I would like it might hurt. I got to test that, and he's been nothing short of amazing. He's been there for me. He was there to help with my dad after my dad died. So that to me, it showed me so much love and commitment on his part. So so that was another piece I just wanted to put in there since I could share that. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, he sounds like you have a wonderful husband.
I do have a wonderful husband, and he is the perfect, I mean, he's such a good person, and he's so classic for your skills. Like he has like the strongest response to me being unhappy, and like it's just so true what you say. And so I always say like he in your book, like he would be considered like the super male. Like he he really like he really does not want to be given feedback and be told what to do. But he is he's just so amazing at taking care of us and being there for us. And I'm so grateful for him. Yeah. I'm so grateful that he came home.
Yeah. And he is your hero. He's still your
He
hero.
he is. And that's the whole thing, right? Like I think that's a piece of it too with flying that little airplane. Even though I probably should learn how to land the darn thing in case something happens. But I mean I had to just give up. I talk about 100% like believing in somebody
Vulnerability.
and trusting,
Trust.
because I can't, it's like being a little child in the back of the car. Like I can't tell him how to drive that plane.
No, he might like to sometimes too, right? Yeah.
So
Wow.
I think that when you say he's my hero, yes. I mean, he is I really do think of that. Like I feel like he could protect me from anything. So I'm very lucky.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's such a triumph, such a victory. Oh, in fact, here I'd like to, Erin, of course, give you my award, my wife award, best
Thank you.
wife. You've earned this. You deserve it. Like what incredible faith and courage you showed and determination and commitment. And you've earned something that's so priceless and so precious through making those decisions. It's very inspiring. I admire you very much. Well done.
Thank you very much. And I can't, Laura, you are amazing. And I am so grateful that you shared this information that you discovered. You have changed my life. My life will be forever changed in a positive way because of you, way outside of my marriage. I mean, do you understand? Like, I just think about you all the time. Like, because of you, I'm flying in airplanes. I went to other countries. I have better relationships with more people. I'm so grateful that you were brave enough to like put it all out there. So thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate that. And you just did the same thing. You were brave enough to put it all out there. Here you are telling your whole story, and all the details, all the personal details that we don't always get to hear the inside of other people's marriages. We just see the pictures on Facebook sometimes and get an impression about that. But you've been so vulnerable. It's so authentic. And I just couldn't be more grateful for this contribution you're making to ending world divorce right now. So thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
If you were going to give a tip to somebody who is where you were, whose husband left, she finds out there's another woman, then he asks for a divorce, and she wants what you have, where he flies her to trips because she wants to go there and takes her to the competition and has been your hero through the loss of your father. And he comes home and yeah, it gets to be your hero. What's your advice for her? What do you suggest she do?
Like if I met somebody, today and they just found this out, I I think the best thing that I did was I did nothing at first. Like, don't worry, don't be in a hurry. You're okay. You're like, it's okay. And when you can do nothing else but self-care, like you can hardly make it through your day. I think just focusing on taking care of yourself. Like when you feel bad, you get to make yourself feel better. Like that's what I would that would be my very first step.
Yeah, just focusing on, and it was really remarkable what you said earlier about how it is possible to give yourself joy, even though you're in the most excruciating pain of your life. There's
Yeah,
both can be true.
it's like, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of like going from a very hot sauna to very cold water, and you almost feel like you have the heat still there, but you're in that freezing water. It really was. I literally would feel, and it still happens from learning that, like when you fill yourself up, I get waves of joy. It's really neat.
Wow. It is. It is. And it's just great to hear it from your lips directly, having been in excruciating pain and also giving yourself incredible joy. And you've given me incredible joy just getting to hear your story today. So thank you so much for sharing it so beautifully.
You're welcome.
Incredible, incredible. Well done.
Yeah, my pleasure.
What's it really like to be a relationship coach, and how do wildly successful relationship coaches get that way anyway? Find out by listening to the Successful Relationship Coach podcast with master relationship coach Kathy Murray, one of the best relationship coaches in the world. She has helped so many relationship coaches become wildly successful, including me. She shares her secrets every week on the Successful Relationship Coach podcast. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, I'm going to reveal what you can do if your husband is in love with someone else. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that last night, Sean and I had a debate about which food is the funniest. And while bananas are pretty silly, the hilarious, obvious winner is clearly beans.